My stepson has been off for as long as I've known him, going on 2.5 years now, which is the length of my marriage to my husband. One of the first things to really throw me off was a picture he drew of his mother when he was barely 6 years old. It was all red and black chaotic marker. He had hidden the drawing from his teacher at school by strategically hiding it at the back of his folder. When I asked what all the red was, he confirmed that it was blood, and that in the picture, his mother was covered in a lot of little cuts, as well as bleeding from her eyes, but he didn't know why. He eventually settled on a story that she fell off a bike. After this, I caught him as he was spilling water at the top of our wood staircase because he knew his older sister would walk up without socks on and slip back and fall, which would satisfy some vindictive plan to get back at her for upsetting him earlier. This was one of the first times watching him and my stepdaughters by myself. I was shocked. At 6. He was 6 years old and already knew how to plan a cruel way to seriously injure his sister. He bragged to me once that he had stolen money from a younger child just to rip it up in front of him. He choked another child on the playground last year. He apparently flipped a table at his mom's house when he was upset just a few weeks ago. He's expressed that he wants to unalive his mother so that he could run the house. He's expressed that he wants to unalive his sisters during fights with them. I started hiding the kitchen knives at this point. His oldest sister upset him once outside, so he used an Orbeez SPI gun to shoot at her. I destroyed the Orbeez gun after this. I do not like having toy gun-like objects in the house anyway. Had it not been captured on our outdoor alarm camera, it may have been hard to convince my husband of this. He has said plenty of times now that my being upset about these incidents has only compounded his stress and has made him feel like he's the whipping boy for my concerns. If I talk about my concerns as we approach another weekend with Stepson or bring up concerns on a good day, I get stonewalled. So, there's that. Now that my stepson is 8, we get the pleasure of punted dining room chairs when he's reminded he can't have video games as a result of his behavior. He screams and screams and screams. He's on Adderall because it's just ADHD, and he just needs more stimulating toys, according to his one-night-a-week therapist. Yes, she says this even though she knows about the death threats, and the physical violence, and the messed-up drawing of his own mother, and the times where he's been aggressive with my son, 5M. And the escalations in general, and the time when he said on a nice walk outside that he'd like to find a squirrel just to rip its tail off, and laughed. And the baby talk. Oh my God, the baby talk. This kid regresses hard. Today he walked around with a water bottle like it was a baby bottle. He babbles with his dad. I have to physically leave the room and put in headphones because it creeps me out so much. His speech is legitimately unintelligible when he's in that mindset. Even his movements start mimicking toddler-like behavior. I've told his therapist about it, but it never gets addressed, which is wild to me since that seems like a major red flag for trauma. In fact, I am the only one out of 2 step-parents and 2 bio-parents who sends visit-by-visit detailed updates on all the behavioral escalations from stepson's time with us. His mother apparently tells the therapist that everything is fantastic at the other house, so my updates are, quote-unquote, very helpful. Yeah, no shoot. To make matters worse, I do have diagnosed PTSD from experiencing domestic violence, which almost ended my life. So I was in fight-or-flight mode before, but now I am living, sleeping, and breathing fight-or-flight around this kid. He's only getting bigger and stronger and angrier. Like tonight. Tonight, he was kicking a soccer ball in the house. I said, if you can't stop kicking that in here, the soccer ball is mine. So, he whimper-whined as he kicked the ball as hard as he could to hit a couple walls in the house. Then he whined and did it some more as I approached. I said, okay, it's mine, calmly, and I took it with me. Stepson threw a chair down, totally expected, unfortunately. He started pouting and shoving things in the house, slamming his door dozens of times as loudly as he could right across the hall from my sleeping son, 5M. Screaming at his dad for continuing with the family movie night without him, which was due to his behavior. More screaming. Stepson finally got fed up with us ignoring his behavior, so he lurked behind the couch where we were sitting, picked up a dining room chair and threw it at a glass door right next to us. After that was a blur of screaming, my son waking up shaking and sobbing upstairs, my husband trying to get stepson to his room, stepson telling me he wanted me to bleed, telling my husband he needed to die, screaming, screaming, screaming. I wanted to call 911, but I needed to calm my son down. My stepdaughter hugged me and helped me calm down my son. I wish I had called 911. I am almost sure I will need to in the future. God, I wish I'd called. Later, I told my husband that we need to solve this problem in any way we can, or I will need to take my son with me and be safe somewhere else. I also told him the next time I hear a death threat, I'm calling 911. My husband started sulking about how I was leaving then, and that I needed to have more compassion for him. I repeated, I am only leaving if we cannot solve this problem. It sounds like we're on the same page about a reevaluation and a stronger therapist. I am not going to leave you if we can start solving some of this. So you're leaving then. This will never get solved to your satisfaction, not on your timeline. I said that I never had a timeline and I still didn't have any agreement on a step toward at least some solution. My solution, I told him, is to have my son go to my parents' house during stepson's visits so that I know he'll be safe. My parents know what's going on and they know that there's likely not much we can do otherwise. I will probably join my son during these visits if the problem still stands, given the fragility of my mental health at this point. Well, that's no way to live, my husband said. I agreed, but also I have to do something about this. My son does not deserve to wake up to screaming and furniture throwing. It is traumatic. I am confident in my solution. Get my son and myself out of the house when stepson is here if there is not a better solution in place. I've read books, listened to podcasts, and watched webinars, and according to all of these things and the experts, discipline is not a solution we can turn to either. We both have no idea what to turn to, which brings me to my central dilemma. I am about to leave my husband, whom I love, because there really isn't much of a solution for what I believe to be a dangerous child with increasing anger and strength to act out that anger. I have no problem doing what's best for me and my son, but my husband is reacting to this ultimatum as though I will never be satisfied with any solution and that there's nothing more to be done. I think we're both right. I'm right for wanting to work on this, and he's right for thinking it might be unfixable. I want to work on small, impactful steps forward like a new evaluation, talking to more specialized experts, etc. But in the past, when I've asked for these things, it blows up into a massive fight and gets turned on me for making it all about me, compounding my husband's stress about it, or for not having compassion for stepson because everyone is out to get him. In fact, the only reason stepson has regular therapy and medication at all right now is because I had to nag and nag about it until it got done. As a stepmother, I have zero rights or guardianship over my stepson, which means my desire to fix this has to go through my husband and then to his ex-wife, who has been resistant to all of this and has been giving stepson phones and tablets since he was old enough to walk. Help. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Set up cameras all over the house with audio. Get visual proof for his foolish parents and therapist. Ask the school counselor and teacher for written referrals about his behavior. If you can't get parents on board, do your best to get the evidence you need. Then I would host a Wake the F Up intervention. Have the dad, stepdad, mom, grandparents, anyone who supposedly loves this boy. Then provide names for a psychotherapist, a place to get him reevaluated, and the help that he and you all truly need. That's what I would do. But if he keeps it up and they make no steps, or if he continues to escalate his behavior, you need to keep your child safe. I feel for your stepdaughter. She's stuck. Good luck, OP, and please keep us updated. Comment 2. Hey, OP, I work in pediatric mental health. I hate to say this, but if you were my friend, I'd be telling you to grab your son and leave. Your husband is failing as a father and as a partner. This child will continue to escalate, people will be injured, and the house will be destroyed, probably multiple times. Even with every intervention under the sun, it likely won't go away. This is a lifetime problem. If this were my home life, I'd dip out so fast everyone's heads would spin. I've just seen too much, though. Being in this world for as long as I have, I'm sorry. Now, for the update. Hey Reddit, back again with an update on my stepson situation. It's been 3 days since my last post, and let me tell you, things have escalated in ways I couldn't have imagined. First, let's rewind a bit. My stepson has always been a handful, but I never expected things to get this out of control. I remember when he was just 6, he drew that disturbing picture of his mother, and I thought it was just a phase. But now, at 8, it's clear that his issues run much deeper. His therapist, who he sees once a week, seems to think it's all just ADHD, but I'm not convinced. The death threats, the violence, it's all too much. Now for the juicy injustice. After the incident with the soccer ball and the chair throwing, my husband and I had a long talk. I thought we were finally getting somewhere, but then his ex-wife called. She accused me of exaggerating the situation and said that I was the problem, not her son. She claimed that everything was fine at her house and that I was just trying to cause trouble. My husband, caught between us, didn't know what to believe. But then, 2 nights ago, my stepson did something that proved I wasn't exaggerating. He waited until my husband was out of the room, then he turned to me with this chilling look in his eyes. He said he wished I was dead, that he wanted to see me bleed just like in that drawing from years ago. I was frozen in shock. When my husband came back, I told him what happened, but my stepson denied it all, and my husband was torn. The next day, things got even worse. My stepson got into a fight with his sister over a video game. It was a full-on brawl, and I had to step in to break it up. That's when he hit me. Not a playful tap, but a real, intentional punch. I was stunned. My husband heard the commotion and came running. He saw the red mark on my face, and finally, he couldn't deny it anymore. We sat down with my stepson and tried to talk to him, but he just laughed. He said he didn't care what we thought, that we couldn't stop him. It was like talking to a brick wall. My husband was at a loss, and I was at my wit's end. That night, I called my parents and told them everything. They were horrified and insisted that I bring my son over right away. So I did. I packed a bag for both of us and left. My husband didn't stop me. He just watched, looking defeated. Now I'm at my parents' house, trying to figure out what to do next. My son is safe, but my marriage is hanging by a thread. My stepson's behavior is out of control, and I don't know if there's any coming back from this. My husband has started to see the severity of the situation, but with his ex-wife in denial and my stepson refusing to change, I'm not sure where we go from here. I've been researching more specialized therapists and programs for children with behavioral issues like my stepson's. I've found a few options, but convincing my husband and his ex-wife to consider them will be another battle. I'm prepared to fight for my stepson's well-being, but I'm also prepared to protect my son and myself at all costs. Husband mocks my cooking, so I dump his dinner in the trash. He begged for forgiveness, but the surprise guest revealed his toxic secret. I'm seeking some advice following a blowout fight that happened a few weeks ago. For context, we've been together for a decade, bought our house in 2017, married in 2019, and vehemently child-free. He was my first and only love. He's had 2 long-term partners prior to me. We have a girlfriend we're seeing, and he had a brief stint of an open-esque relationship, but only if we dated and slept with the person together. This event that has broken my trust happened at the tail end of November, around my brother's birthday. My husband, M, and I had been arguing for a few nights before R's birthday about various things, but the night before was where it had turned quite nasty. M was throwing insults to hurt, telling me I didn't make enough money in comparison to him who makes double what I do, that I could never afford to leave him or live on my own, and that I took advantage of him while I was off work. I had unexpectedly been let go from my job and was in a privileged position to take 9 months off to deal with major burnout. Between unemployment insurance and his salary, we could make it work. The general sentiment was, "You're shoot." After a while of him berating me, I snapped and got really close to him and yelled, "Good for you, big man making the big boy salary. Congratulations, you white male privilege typical success story," to which he responded by kissing me on the lips. I pushed him off me immediately and never felt rage like that in my life. He knows my history of being attacked by men in my past, but had no problem doing it to me. He tried to apologize by saying sorry, but we all know a proper apology is not just that word. Fast forward to the morning of R's birthday. Em and I had been fighting until late the night before, but had to be up early to prepare food for the party with my family. Em had been told multiple times that we had to bring 2 food items to the party, and I had been asking him all week for ideas on what to bring. He did not hear me specify we had to bring 2 dishes, which meant both got left to be made the morning of. I had decided to sleep in an extra 10 minutes because I was exhausted, and I figured if it ended up making us 10 minutes late, it wasn't the end of the world. Admittedly, I have been a time stickler in the past, but it's usually because Em forgets a million things while we're trying to get out of the door, while I've been spending time getting ready and he's doing other stuff. Anyway, he came barging into the bedroom yelling at me for being lazy and that I needed to get my butt out of bed, just being overtly assertive. It made me cry and truthfully scared me. I was dead asleep and I haven't been woken up like that since I lived at home with my parents. My dad did a lot of the same. I ended up calling my sister to tell her we couldn't make it to R's party and that I was sorry for the short notice. She could hear in my voice I was crying, but didn't press. Em heard me on the phone and thought I was talking to my mom, so he decided to call her, which he's done during arguments 3 times in the past because I got too crazy to handle, and tell her we are coming. I got upset at him for calling her and yelled at him to be a big man, and if he's gonna call my mom to tell her the truth. And this is where he fricked up large. Him and I have been seeing a partner, 31-year-old female, together as a throuple, but had kept it a secret from them as they just wouldn't understand. And I wasn't ready to have that discussion with them. He decided in that moment that he was going to tell my mother that we're in an open marriage. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but my intimacy life has never been a topic of conversation with my parents, so I'm sure you all can understand when my jaw hit the floor. He hung up the phone and just looked at me. I got really quiet and just was absolutely floored that not only would he out me, my parents don't know I'm bisexual, but that he would disrespect me again and call my mother during an argument. In past arguments and this one, he had told me he was feeling suicidal, but I had started to feel guilty for missing R's birthday, so I decided to drive us down to my sister's to drop off food and his gift. I told Em that he was to sit in the back seat in silence, unless it was a necessary conversation to have. Temperature control, bathroom needed, food request, that kind of stuff. About 1/3 of the drive there, my sister texted me telling me not to come and to just deal with what was happening in a group chat with Em. Em decided he was going to tell my sister we were coming regardless, even though she said she didn't want us there. I got fuming mad at him as he had already dug his grave with calling my mom earlier. At one point, he decided he was going to try to get out of the car when I was stopped at a light at an incredibly busy intersection and embarrassing me, which again, he's done before in public. Last time he shouted across a Walmart parking lot for tossing a car key at him. This caused someone in the parking lot to stop and threaten to call the police on him. I had to ask her not to. He's embarrassed me in public multiple times with his tantrums, and he knows how much it upsets me when he acts like that. We were very close to his parents' house, so I told him I was done with his nonsense, that I was dropping him off at his parents', and I'd contact him through lawyers. I drove home to our house and went into the basement bedroom to dissociate, because my brain was reeling from what had happened. He came to our house to get an overnight bag, and he said he was staying for a few days with them. We ended up in another argument while he was here because he told me both of his parents drove with him up to our house to protect him and keep him safe. I yelled at him so loud, I blew my voice out. Fast forward to now, my parents have not talked to me, in addition to my sister. He ended up telling his parents after I dropped him off. They're mad at both of us, but mostly me. Yay for slut-shaming. His brother thinks I was purposely getting in his face to make him want to hit me. My mom texted me tonight telling me we are not welcome at Christmas this year. which is the first time ever we won't be together as a family. I have a grandfather who's 88 and not getting any younger, and I'm scared that there's always that chance this may be his last one. I just don't know what to do. I feel like the writing is on the wall, but I don't want to start over. I don't want to have to sell our house and deal with all the divorce nonsense, but how the frick do I ever trust him again? He's shown so much growth since that fight, but it doesn't mean shoot now. I feel like he's pushed me so far away. I'm not the type to let people back in when they've shown their true colors, but like frick, I don't want to throw away the last decade of my life. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. The level of toxicity in this relationship is extreme. You know there's really no fixing this, right? Please pack your things and move out. Sell the house, divorce, and find yourself a therapist. You have a lot to work through. Also, best wishes on repairing the relationship with your family. Comment 2. This relationship is extremely unpleasant, and you need to distance yourself and seek therapy. This person enjoys provoking you and will go to any lengths to do so. You can't salvage this. Now for the update. Hey Reddit, it's been 3 days since my last post, and boy, do I have an update for you. I'm still reeling from the fallout of my husband M's actions and the subsequent family drama. But let's just say, things have taken some unexpected turns. First off, let me fill you in on a bit of history that I didn't mention before. Em and I, we've had our ups and downs, but we always prided ourselves on being a team. We met in college, and it was like we were two puzzle pieces that fit perfectly. He was the outgoing one, always the life of the party, while I was more reserved, the planner, the organizer. We balanced each other out, but lately that balance has been off, way off. After the whole fiasco with Em outing our relationship status to my mom and the fight that followed, I was at my wit's end. I thought I knew this man, but his recent actions had me questioning everything. It was like he was a stranger, and the man I fell in love with was just a distant memory. Now for the juicy update. 2 days ago, I was at home, still trying to process everything when I got a text from Em. He said he wanted to talk, that he had something important to tell me. I was hesitant, but I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop nearby. When I got there, Em was already waiting. He looked different, almost like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. We sat down and he started to talk. He told me about his struggles with mental health, how he'd been feeling lost and confused. He confessed that he'd been seeing a therapist for the past few months, trying to work through his issues. I was shocked. I had no idea he was going through all this. But that wasn't all. Em then dropped a bombshell. He admitted that he'd been unfaithful. Not with our girlfriend, but with someone else. Someone I didn't know. My heart sank. I felt like I couldn't breathe. All this time while I was dealing with being jobless and the stress of our relationship, he was with someone else. I didn't know what to say. I just got up and left. I walked around the city for hours, trying to clear my head. I felt betrayed, angry, and alone. But as I walked, I started to see things more clearly. I realized that I didn't deserve this, that I was worth more than the lies and the deceit. Yesterday, I made a decision. I called a lawyer and started the process of filing for divorce. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but I knew it was the right thing for me. I needed to take control of my life again. Today, I went back to the house to collect some of my things. Em was there, and he tried to talk to me, to apologize, but I wasn't having it. I was done with his apologies, done with the drama. I took what I needed and left. As I was driving away, I saw Em's parents' car parked down the street. They must have been there to support him, but I didn't care. I was moving on, starting a new chapter in my life. And here's where the subtle justice comes in. As I was leaving the neighborhood, I saw Mem's car parked outside the house of the woman he'd cheated on me with. It was clear he was there, probably looking for comfort or whatever. But what he didn't know was that her husband was home. I didn't stick around to see what happened, but I can imagine it wasn't pretty. Wife blames me for daughter's illness, but her cough revealed the truth. She's not ready for the twist that's coming. Mycoplasma pneumonia has been going around where I live for a while now, and I've been watching my students getting it and taking time off of school left and right recently. It's well known that there's a wave of it going through, and I've been doing what preventative things I can. Well, despite washing my hands after every class and trying to keep my distance, I got it too last week. As soon as it was confirmed by blood work, I quarantined myself in the bedroom for a couple of days and tried to keep down contact with my 3.5-year-old daughter to the barest minimum so as not to give it to her. Well, that was all too little too late, and now she has it too and is just as miserable as I am. We've been to the doctor, she has meds, and we're doing all we can to get her through it. I get that my wife and her parents, who stepped in when I got sick, are worried about our daughter and hate to see her like this. I hate to see her like this. And I feel like shoot because it's my job at the school that dragged this into our home too. I really want to be as supportive as possible and attack the problem, but my wife and her parents are ganging up on me and relentlessly guilting me for our daughter's condition. She has a cough, she has a runny nose, she's clearly miserable, but the doctor said she can be treated at home. My mother-in-law has chastised me for not staying away from sick students. They have both raved about how I'm always sick. I'm not. My wife just stormed out of the room and said, "I'm sorry, but if anything serious happens to her, then I'll never forgive you." I do my part to stay healthy. I do my share of work around the house and my fair share of caring for our daughter. I want to be supportive and comforting because everyone is so stressed to see our daughter like this. I do not feel that this sort of treatment from them is fair in the slightest, though. So how do I handle this? My patience is wearing very thin with being the outlet for their frustrations. Edit. Some answers to questions I've gotten multiple comments on. 1. Yes, I am 16-year-old and I am asked at school and at home. I teach in China, and in this country, teachers don't have their own room. We travel between classrooms that the students stay in literally all day. There is no air filtration, there is no central heating and cooling, there is no way for me to disinfect the classroom between classes. Each classroom has windows on two sides, which can bring in a cross breeze, but as it has been consistently $200,000 Celsius over here for weeks, so no one has opened those windows, and each classroom has become its own petri dish. 2. No, I didn't mix with my daughter during my quarantine time. I came out only to use the bathroom maybe once or twice per day, and the whole place got sprayed down with disinfectant after. 3. No, nobody asked me to do anything specific to keep healthy during the cold and flu season, so no one has the right to be pissed at me for violating a prearranged agreement. 4. I found out that I had pneumonia after both my wife and I went to the clinic for coughing that wasn't going away with home treatment. I got the blood test, and apparently all of the blame, and my wife decided that she didn't want the blood test because she wasn't feeling that bad. 5. For those who looked through my post history, I'm well aware of this kind of shitty treatment is nothing new. In fact, 2024 will be the year that I find out everything I need to have arranged and gotten done in order to get a divorce and not get raked over the coals. I have built my career in my wife's country and her hometown, and a divorce would probably end with me staying around as long as made sense so I could be part of my daughter growing up. 6. Thank you all sincerely for the questions, advice, and the vindication. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You cannot protect yourself from a virus that spreads in the air by washing your hands and keeping a distance. There needs to be ventilation and HEPA filters to clean the air, as well as well-fitted masks, and you cannot make these changes by yourself. If you were allowed to wear a mask, you could protect yourself and your family that way. In your house, you can keep the air ventilated by getting your own air purifier. But as long as the infection numbers are so high in society, and so little is being done to protect students and teachers, you cannot be held responsible for your daughter's illness. I hope she gets better soon. Comment 2. OP's post history shows a lot of deeper issues. The wife doesn't work, and neither does the mother-in-law, who seems to live with them. Dad gets home from work and has almost all the childcare responsibilities, and does all the weekend parenting so that the wife can play video games. Considering OP is sick and can't care for the kid as easily, I assume his wife has been angry this weekend because it ruined her special weekend gaming time. The post about tension headaches explains this. There is also a dead bedroom issue where 3 weeks ago the wife essentially told him they'd need to split amicably if he can't get over it. Now for the update. Hey Reddit, it's been 2 weeks since my last post about the whole mycoplasma pneumonia situation at home, and boy do I have an update for you. Things have been tense, to say the least, but there's been a surprising turn of events. First off, let's talk about my daughter. She's been on meds and is finally starting to bounce back. Her cough is less frequent and she's got that spark back in her eyes. It's been a relief seeing her getting better each day, and I've been right there with her, reading stories and playing games whenever I'm not knocked out by my own illness. Now, on to the juicy stuff. Remember how my wife and her parents were blaming me for bringing the illness home? Well, things reached a boiling point. My wife and I had a huge confrontation. She was still fuming, saying that I didn't care enough to prevent this from happening. I reminded her that I did everything I could, given the circumstances at school. I mean, I'm not exactly thrilled to be sick either. But here's the shocker. In the heat of the argument, my wife let slip that she'd been feeling under the weather before I even got my diagnosis. She'd brushed it off, thinking it was just a cold. That's right. She might have been the one who brought the pneumonia into the house, not me. You could have heard a pin drop after that revelation. The guilt trip they'd been putting me on suddenly seemed pretty unfair. My mother-in-law, who'd been my biggest critic, was speechless. My father-in-law, who's usually a man of few words, actually came to my defense. He pointed out that we'd all been trying our best and that playing the blame game wasn't helping anyone. After that, we all sat down and had a real heart-to-heart. We talked about the stress we'd been under, the fear of our daughter being sick, and how it was easier to point fingers than to face the situation together. It was a tough conversation, but it led to a compromise that I didn't see coming. We agreed that moving forward, we'd work as a team to keep our home as healthy as possible. My in-laws offered to help out more with our daughter, giving me a chance to recover fully. My wife and I decided to set up a better system for when one of us gets sick, like a quarantine protocol to minimize the spread of germs. And here's the kicker. My wife apologized. She admitted that she'd let her fear and frustration get the better of her, and that it wasn't fair to take it out on me. I accepted her apology, knowing that we were both just scared parents at the end of the day. As for the school situation, I've been in touch with the administration about improving conditions. They're actually considering my suggestions for better hygiene practices, which is a win in my book. In the midst of all this, I've been quietly preparing for the possibility of a divorce, just like I mentioned before. But with this new development, I'm reevaluating things. Maybe there's a chance for us to work through our issues after all. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.